Well, joining us now without further ado, we haven't seen him in a week or two. Now I'm doing the rhymes, is State Senator from Fairfax, Democrat, Chap Petersen. Chap Petersen, I know you're fired up because this is Redskins weekend. NFL opens. It's like opening day of baseball, right? You're 0-0. Everybody is tied. Everybody has a shot. No injuries yet. And so, wow, you got to be fired up about this weekend. Chap, welcome.
Thank you, John. And can I first say that I want the John Fredericks special for $39.
$39. I got to get you that, man. They come in, they'll tune your air conditioner up, man. I'm gonna tell them, Chap Petersen. I'm going to call him up after the show.
But I'm all in.
You're all in. Okay, let's go to the Redskins now.
Yeah.
This is why we have the best discussions about the Redskins, because you and I are both football fans. But you are a diehard Redskins Nation, live, eat, breathe, bleed Burgundy. And I'm just an objective observer. I'm a Titans fan, and my team basically sucks. So what do you look for this weekend? And just give us the state of the Redskins. What's keeping you up at night? What are you excited about? How do you see this season playing out?
Well, okay. It's going to be, let's see, we start against Philadelphia, all right? And nobody likes the Eagles. I don't like the Eagles, never liked the Eagles. We've beaten them 5 times in a row, so that's been very, very sweet. We've played pretty strongly against them. Our big thing is, we lost Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson, our 2 receivers from last year. Last year's offense was really as strong an offense as I've seen since really the early 90s Super Bowl teams. I mean, it was a very dynamic offense, and we have yet to show that we could duplicate that. Now, the big variable, John, is going to be Terrell Pryor and Josh Doxson. I mean, they're both very athletic young kids. Terrell Pryor's a little bit older. But, they have yet to do it in a Redskins uniform, and Dotson really hasn't done anything in the pros at all. So, that's the big variable for us. We know what Jordan Reed can do. We know what Jamison Crowder can do. I still think the offensive line is going to be one of the better ones in the league. I know they look terrible in preseason, but, at the end of the day, those games don't count. And we know what Kirk Cousins can do. I mean, we know who he is. I think he's a top-tier NFL quarterback. Is he top 5? No, but, he's top 10 or 12, which is going to get you a lot of wins. And, and then I think on the flip side, on the defense, we've got a lot of young players with skill, a lot of young players that are fast. And I'm hoping one of them, maybe it's a Monte Nicholson, maybe it's a Fabian Moreau, maybe Kendall Fuller, who's from the D.C. area. I'm hoping that one of them's going to flash and really step up and be the next, if not Sean Taylor, at least D'Angelo Hall or someone that's going to be a consistent starter playmaker for years. That's what I'm looking for.
All right, so you guys opened at home,
yep.
Which is always a good thing. So you're at FedEx Field. You're opening against Philadelphia. I just got to tell you, when I looked at the line, I had to look at it twice because I thought it was a mistake. So you've beaten Philadelphia 5 consecutive times, and you're a 1-point underdog to Philadelphia, who's on the road at home. That, to me, has got to be the best bet. I mean, why are you guys an underdog? You ought to be -3. It's unbelievable.
You know what? I don't get Vegas unless they're putting stock in the preseason, which is always a dangerous thing to do.
Very dangerous.
We had a better record than Philadelphia last season, and of course we beat them both times we played them, and we're playing at home. So I'm not quite sure why they would be the favorite, but at the end of the day, we got to prove it.
Right.
I mean, last year's team was a good team, but that fell apart at the end.
Right.
And so they don't. Nobody, hell, even the Patriots. I mean, nobody gets a free pass in this league. Nobody gets to just say, "Hey, my reputation." So we got to prove it. And I'll agree with the odds makers. It's probably a 50-50 game. I mean, I don't like Philly. They got some players. I do think that young quarterback is got some skills, Carson Wentz. So, they're a tough team. It's a tough crowd. It's a tough city. Bring it on, baby. We're ready.
All right. Now, home opener, always a lot of fun. You do a big tailgating event. So what time do you guys really get there? What time do you get to the stadium?
All right. Well, I do try and squeeze in early church. Try and get to the church around 8:30, and get out about 9:30, maybe 9:45. I usually pack my grill the night before, so I usually bring one of my nephews, because that then puts the burden on my sister to go out and buy things. I usually
Smart.
Sort of put everything together by about 10:15. Tribbett's coming over, so I'll be taking him. And then I usually rendezvous. There's a shopping center in Merrifield. We all rendezvous there about, let's say, 10:30, maybe 10:45. And from there, around the Beltway, it's about 45 minutes. So I pull into the stadium about 11:30, and usually my first thing is to get the grill set up.
Right.
My son usually brings a football, so if I have him and my nephews, they're usually throwing the ball around. I get the grill sparked up. That takes about 10 minutes. I usually have some bratwurst. Maybe for a special occasion, I may have some steaks, chicken breasts. I usually have corn on the cob, some grilled vegetables. So I got it going, man. And then usually I bring some beers, obviously, maybe a couple cigars, set up the chairs, and just listen to the pregame show and hang out for about an hour.
A lot of fun, no doubt. And then you go in there, and that place is going to be rocking on Sunday, no doubt. The Skins opening at home against Philadelphia. They're a 1-point underdog. Offensive line didn't show much in preseason, but you're right. I mean, you cannot look at preseason. I mean, how many teams have gone, like, back in the old days when they had 6 games? Remember that, when the exhibition season was 16?
I do remember that, when they had 6 games, and they had 14 in the regular season.
That's right, and teams would go 6-0, and then they would win 3 games. So it just doesn't matter. But their offensive line looked like that might have had a few soft spots in it. What do you look for there, Chap?
Well, I don't know if Kyle Long's going to play, or, their center.
Right.
They've had this new kid, Chase Rouillet, out of Wyoming at center. Center is such a critical position because, 1, they snap the ball, and 2, they oftentimes make the line adjustments. So that's got me a little bit nervous. Trent and Brandon Sheriff were not on their A game in the preseason. But again, it's preseason. At the end of the day, you just have to trust, and you have to say, okay, this guy's been a Pro Bowler for the last 3 or 4 seasons. When the whistle blows on the first game, I expect him to be a great player. So I'm going to trust at this point. Listen, if we're talking a week from now and we give up 6 sacks and our running game gets 50 yards, I'm going to be distraught. Okay.
Right.
But right now I'm hanging on to a little bit of fragile confidence.
All right, well, look, it's got to be a lot of fun on Sunday, and I know that this is football. The opening day is always fun because everybody's the same. Everybody's got a shot. I really think Washington is going to be better than a lot of people are saying. You guys had a very solid team last season, and you just had that one bad game against the Giants. I don't know what happened. Overlooked.
Just gave that one away. Yeah.
It just gave it away, and the Giants had nothing to play for, but they didn't. They were playing loose, and it was just a bad game. And sometimes you get one of those, and it puts a sour ball in your mouth. And I think that game is reverberating why a lot of people are not picking Washington.
It's interesting that if we don't throw that pick and we go down and score and win that game and get to the playoffs, and there'll be 2 playoff appearances in a row, people would look back on the season as being successful. We went 9-6-1 against a very tough first place schedule in the NFC East, and people will be saying we're a team on the rise. But Cousins throws the pick, we lose the game, we're out of the playoffs, and it's just sort of been a malaise. So interesting how that goes.
All right, well, I think they're going to win 9 games, and I think you're going to make the playoffs. And, look, Kirk Cousins, I mean, he's got a lot on the line. He's going to be a free agent, right? So, he might get in the, $100 million club like Stafford did, right? Didn't Stafford get the biggest contract ever? He's got a lot on the line. I think you guys are going to have a good season. You're going to put a lot of points up. And I think your defense is better than people are saying. So we'll see what plays out. I think you get 9 wins and make the playoffs. Now, let's get to Dominion. Okay, yes. New report out. Actually, a very good story done by Alan Suderman of the Associated Press. And he basically says a new report out says that customers of Virginia's 2 largest electric monopolies would be paying lower bills if not for the 215 Frank Wagner deal that
Right.
blocked state regulators from adjusting rates, from doing an audit. But
Right.
in turn for that, Wagner's deal was that rates wouldn't go up, they'd stay the same. What is your analysis of this?
Well, my analysis is the law worked exactly as intended. It took what were above market electric rates and locked them in. And normally regulators would give refunds if Dominion or Appalachian Power earn excess profits. In other words, they obtain more revenues than they need to cover their costs plus a reasonable rate of return. Typically, the rate of return has been 8 to 9%. Right now, they're earning 12 to 13%. So they're making, at least Dominion, I think, was clearing an extra $133 million a year, which goes right to their bottom line. And that would be money that would otherwise be returned to the consumer. So, it's just as I predicted. They locked in an above-market rate, and the consumers are the losers. And the part that I find frustrating, everyone says, oh, well, the rates are frozen, so consumers are protected. Actually, the rates are not frozen. The base rate is frozen, but Dominion still has the ability to add rate adjustment clauses anytime there's a natural event like a hurricane or anytime there's, they build a new plant, let's say, a big new nuclear plant, and that's an additional cost. They can add that to the base rate. So the actual monthly charge is not frozen. It's just the base rate is frozen. And again, that's frozen at an above market price. And what I find frustrating is that of the members of the General Assembly that voted on this law in 2015, 95% of them had no clue what was going on. And, it's very frustrating because you try and tell people, look, this is the effect of what you're doing. And people say, oh, the rates are frozen. And you say, well, really, they're not frozen. But, again, John, it's just as I predicted. It's frustrating. I'll be bringing back my same legislation in 2018. I've talked to a lot of people offline who now understand this issue. I've talked to a lot of representatives of major industrial users who have always understood this issue and now are more likely to come out of the shadows and actually say, yeah, we need to repeal this law because it's costing us money to our bottom line.
Okay, so $130 million is estimated that Dominion is going to make in profit that they wouldn't have made had the deal not been done, right?
Right.
So let's
Yes.
take that figure. So break that down. What does that mean for an average consumer? Have you guys figured out what that rebate would be? I mean,
Well,
is it $5?
let's say, I'll use roughly 1 million users out in the Commonwealth. And when I say a user, it's a household or a business.
Right.
That's a rough number for Dominion. It's probably more than that. But let's just say 1 million because that makes it easy. That means you're being overcharged by $133.
All right.
So for the year. Now, listen, some people can bear that, some cannot. For some people, maybe it's a few dollars. For a major industrial user, it may be thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. The bottom line is it's less the quantity because I'm sure Dominion will come back and say, well, our rates are cheaper than Maryland or D.C.
Right.
or some of the other neighbors, which is true.
Right.
It's really the fact that they're a monopoly. They're a regulated monopoly. They should only be charging the rate to cover their costs.
Right.
And I've had the same conversation with our higher education institutions. Your tuition should cover the costs. Okay, you're not in the business of overcharging people and then holding the money so you can invest it somewhere. You're in charge of providing a service, paying that cost, and earning a reasonable rate of return, which again historically is 8 to 10%. So, it's an age-old battle. I feel like I've been fighting it for years, and yes, the report did vindicate me, or did vindicate those of us that had taken that position. But yeah, at the end of the day, honestly, John, I would prefer a system where we don't have a monopoly. I would prefer a system where we have, more options for consumers, where people can, if they want to buy renewable energy, they can do that and maybe pay a couple bucks more. If they want to get the lowest cost alternative. But at the end of the day, they don't have to go through one provider, that we have a much more decentralized system.
Okay, so I talked to Frank Wagner, his position, and he basically said, look, we made a deal. And at the time we made the deal and we locked these rates in, it was because the uncertainty of the market, the uncertainty of who was going to get elected president, the uncertainty of all of these regulations, that had they all been enforced, the Clean Power Bill and the Clean Power Act and all that, that it would have cost Dominion a lot of money and they would have raised rates. And so he said, we made a deal. It's like buying insurance. And what he says is, it's like if you buy fire insurance and you pay $100 over a 5-year period, you paid $6,000, you don't get mad because you didn't have a fire. You're like, okay, well, I bought the insurance. I didn't have the fire. Okay, you move on. So he's we already made the deal, and now you're mad because you got the bottom end of the deal. And he says if Dominion, if they had to pay all this money out for all this stuff, they wouldn't be coming back and saying, oh, it's a bad deal, I need more money. They'd have to live with it. So he said, we purchased insurance, and the calamity didn't happen, so rates stayed the same, move on. The deal's a deal.
Frank doesn't understand his own legislation, unfortunately, because that's not how it works. If there had been some type of natural disaster, if there had been some type of regulatory cost from Clean Power Plan, if there had been, again, a new plant that we had to build, that would have been represented to the customer as a rate adjustment charge. It would have been added to the monthly bill on top of the base rates. We froze the base rates. All of these things he's talking about would be rate adjustment charges. So we didn't buy any insurance. Or here's what we bought. We bought an insurance policy which had a carve-out for basically every single bad thing. So if I buy an insurance policy and then somebody comes and robs my house or burns my house down and says, well, we don't cover arson or we don't cover robbery, that's essentially the policy that we purchased. So I don't buy his argument, and I like Frank. We can go round and round, but the policy we purchased had no value. It had zero value to the consumer.
All right, so then
why did we do it?
Do it
because again, 95% of the people don't understand. 95% of the people pushing red or green, they don't understand the issue, and so they just push green.
All right, so Dominion Senior Vice President, I want to get both sides here. Dominion Senior Vice President Thomas Wolforth, in Alan's article, disputed some of the analysis and said the company's rates weren't too high given the potential cost the company could have had to eat during a rate review freeze, including from potential hurricanes and coal ash cleanup. So he's saying the exact opposite.
Well, again, these are all rate adjustment charges. I mean, you can read the SEC report, and I'm not going to sort of go into the weeds on it, but
right.
This is the one you make. Ken Cuccinelli and I actually wrote an editorial together on this. This is one where we see completely eye to eye that all of the events they're talking about, all of the sort of potential costs that they're talking about, all of these would have been rate adjustment charges that would have been passed along to the consumer. That would not have been wrapped up into the base rate. So, again, I agree with the SEC. It was exactly as we predicted. The AP story, I think, captured it correctly. And the question is, how much longer are we going to go on like this with a bad deal for Virginia consumers? I'm saying no longer.
All right, well, we'll see what plays out in 2018. Chap, I got another minute. Talk about your new law firm. I know you're specializing in eminent domain, and you have a very unique opportunity to represent people when they think they're getting screwed by the government. Can you elaborate on that? You have a minute.
Sure. John, I appreciate it. I've been practicing law for 23 years, and over the last few years, I've gotten very active in doing condemnation work, eminent domain work, where my firm represents landowners whose land has been taken by the government. I've partnered with Hank Howell with the Eminent Domain Litigation Group, so you can look up Hank at Eminent Domain Litigation Group. He's based in Virginia Beach. I'm obviously up in Northern Virginia at Chap, Petersen and Associates. But, I got about a half dozen cases on Route 1 right now. I've got a couple up in Leesburg and obviously working on some big ones downstate, depending on how certain events go. So, yeah, John, it's an exciting practice. It's a chance to represent landowners, make sure that they get a square deal if their property's being taken. And we've had some excellent results, and, we enjoy it.
People want to contact your firm that might need your representation. How do they do that, Chap?
Okay, look me up at Chap Petersen, Petersen, Chap Petersen and Associates. And again, if you're down in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Hank's at Eminent Domain Litigation Group, so that's real easy, just Eminent Domain Litigation Group. So just depending on what, we have statewide coverage. I handle the ones up here. Hank handles them down there. And if you're in between, either one of us can handle it. But if you got a situation, need a lawyer, give us a call.
All right, Chap Petersen, I want to thank you for being with us. And I know you're excited. You're very excited about Sunday, and you get to take your little guy. So good luck with that, and have him throwing a football around. And I think the Redskins are going to win. I think you guys are going to have a much better season than you think you are. So just take a deep breath. You're going to win Sunday. And then in your honor, we're going to play the Redskins song on Monday as soon as we get on the air.
Thank you, John.